Owning a short-term rental near Disney can be a daunting task, one that you may not have the confidence to go through on your own. I actually recorded a call with one of my investor clients just a few nights ago, and I'd love to share the conversation. And I bet you have a lot of the same questions as they did. So take a listen. It might calm some of your fears, knowing that I've got the answers that you're looking for, and I'm going to hold your hand through the whole process. And as always, this information is on the house.
My first question is, how has the Airbnb rental market near Disney and the parks evolved over the last few years, especially after COVID?
Oh my gosh, so that's a fantastic question. I'm going to go back a little bit even further than what you had just asked, because Orlando's been doing short-term rentals for decades, long before what everyone refers to as Airbnb as a generic term. So we're kind of built for this, right? We have communities that are specifically short-term rental resorts that are never going to be zoning changed, or you don't have to worry about regulations or the HOA changing their mind. So in that respect, Orlando's the #1 place in the world for vacationers, period. However, since COVID, things did change a little bit, right? Because people they needed to get out of their state that wasn't allowing them to do anything. So they came here and they had a little bit more freedom, right? And that everyone was holding their breath for a little while, and then it skyrocketed. Then we couldn't get one. And of course that drove up demand, which drove up pricing. So now we're on the back end of that a little bit. COVID stopped and the demand has wavered a little bit. We're in a little bit of downswing, but next year I think we're going to head right back in to a better economy because the election's over. People are going to stop holding their breath. And Universal's got a whole new theme park that's opening up that you're not going to want to miss.
What are some of the best neighborhoods for short-term rentals in Central Florida?
The majority of Orlando is in Orange County, which does not allow short-term rentals. There's a few, stipulations that you can work around for that. But as a rule, you can't be in Orange County, and that's where Universal is. So getting a short-term rental next to Universal, you're going to get caught, and you have to decide if that's worth it, right? So everything that we have here is in a place called Four Corners. It's literally where 4 counties come together: Orange, Polk, Osceola, and Lake. Osceola is where the majority of your short-term rentals are going to be, and where all the great resorts are. There's a couple in Polk, a couple in Lake, but Osceola, most people know it as Kissimmee and Davenport. Those are the 2 big cities you're going to hear the most about. And within those areas, there's short-term rental approved, deed restricted communities that you want to be in. Of course, I've got my favorites. I've got about 8 or 10 of them. I've got a map that shows how close they are to Disney, how close they are to Universal, drive time, amenities, all those types of things. But I've certainly got my favorites. It depends on what you're looking for though, right? Some are condo only, some are townhome only, some are a mixture of townhomes and single family. Some have limit on number of bedrooms, some go up to 14 bedrooms. So some are ultra luxurious, some are lifestyle. So all those things matter, and that's why I need to get to know you and how you're going to use it, whether it's for you and your family, or it's just a business write-off, or for strictly cash flow. All those things are going to matter what communities that I ultimately wind up suggesting to you.
Cool. My next question. Are there any upcoming development or like projects that might impact the Airbnb rental market this year or in the next few?
Well, I'm not so sure that it has so much to do with the neighborhood. Obviously, in real estate, we always say location, location, location. So the closer you can be to the theme parks, obviously the better, because they're not building any more land, and Disney might even be, swallowing up more of that land. So to get close to Disney now would be my first suggestion. I would stay away from neighborhoods that are more than 15 miles away, because the commute is just going to be too long. But as far as things that are going to impact, again, I would tell you to stay within an HOA community, because once you go out, those days are kind of over if you're trying to get theme park goers. If you're in Orlando proper or anywhere around, or in another state where there's not so much regulation, I would say you're okay with no HOA, and it might even benefit you. But here in Orlando, if you don't have an HOA, you're probably not going to get seen because the algorithms of the websites are just not going to let people find you because there's so many already listed for sale or listed for rent within these resort communities that get booked and booked and booked. So they rise to the top of the algorithms and they get seen more. So if you're not in one of these resort communities, I'm going to have to say the risk is on you at that point, right?
Cheers. All right, next. What kind of seasonal trends are we looking at with occupancy rates?
So as far as occupancy rates in Orlando, typically, pre-pandemic, we were shooting for 80%. Now we have a lot more units on board, so that number's come down a little bit. Now, if we're seeing 70%, that's a really good number. But of course, a lot of that has to do with you and how you manage. If you're self-managing or if you're hiring a property manager, if you're in a resort that requires you to use their on-site property manager, and how good of a marketer are you? Is your house on Instagram? Does it have its own TikTok? Those kind of things really matter to help you stand out. So being in the right resort matters, being a good marketer matters, and how you manage the property, whether it's self-managed or use a property manager. All those things have to come into play.
Thanks. So when I'm looking at potential properties, are there any specific features or amenities to keep in mind?
Yeah, so on properties, again, one of my first questions to you is going to be, how are you going to use it? Is your family going to come down here and make use of this property? Because then that matters to you and your family, how you're going to use it, how much space do you need? But ultimately, we're doing this to make money, right? Whether it's cash flow or appreciation or maybe a little bit of both. Picking out the right property for you is of the utmost importance. So I'm going to say, if you're in one of the resort communities that I'm going to suggest to you, they all have pools. So if you have a single family house and you don't have a pool, you might as well not be in this business because you're never going to get booked. And then there's a lot of nuances after that. How many bedrooms do you have? Because do you want to attract just small families from Ohio? Or are you looking for big groups of people coming from Brazil and China and the UK? Or maybe they're coming from a sports league that's coming to Orlando for a championship soccer match or cheerleading competition, and 3 families all book it together. So size of the home matters. The features do matter, but most of these homes have been fully updated. So they all have granite, they all have pools, they're all in a gated community with amenities. So all those things are kind of an unequal playing field, but then you get into how well does your home stand out? So the theming is ultimately going to dictate some of how well you do, whether it's your nightly rate or how often you're booked. So bedroom count, location, amenities, things like pools, game rooms, all those things really matter.
I'm curious, are there licenses or requirements for short-term rentals? What do I have to worry about?
Okay, so that's something, again, if you're going to be using a property manager, the property manager typically helps take care of that for you, is applying for a hotel motel license here in Orlando area. That's done at the county level, so you have to go get a permit, and it's very easy to do, but some places are going to require you to actually have someone local as a point of contact. And I have done that for my clients in the past, where if something happens to the property, the police or emergency people are going to call me, and I'm going to be the first one on site at that property. So you have to find that out in the specific jurisdiction that you're going to be in. But yes, the short answer is you do need licenses, and those are all at the county and state level.
Can you give an overview of how to find and utilize property management companies, please?
Of course. So property managers is one of the things that's going to potentially set you apart from everybody else. And of course, it comes at a cost, right? Typically, property managers in Orlando charge a fee based on the final booking amount, which can be anywhere from 15 to 25%. Some of those fees I've seen come down a little bit recently because they're trying to grow their business. But I would plan on 20%, and if it's a little bit less, good for you. If it's a little bit more, you may want to rethink some of that. But what I normally suggest is, if you've never done this before, and you're most likely doing this from another state or possibly even another country, is to budget for the property manager, no matter what your plans are. Because At some point, if you think you can do it, you may change your mind, or your life may change. Something may happen where you don't have the time anymore. Now, if that number's already baked in, you'll be okay. But what I also recommend is, for another reason, is to hire the property manager so that they can get everything set up for you. Get your licenses in place, get all the automation done on the thermostats, the alarms, the cameras, the pool heaters, the door closers, all those things that they have expertise in. And then also they can set up websites for you, booking calendars. They can do the dynamic pricing or whatever business model that they choose, and let them get the marketing out there and do all that legwork that you don't know how to do and don't have time to do. Because the key is to get up and running as fast as you can, get some reviews, and start making money. If you're trying to figure all this out and out of state, you're going to struggle, and that could be, a downfall really quickly, because in the meantime, while you're learning, you're paying taxes and mortgage and insurance and electric, and all those bills aren't going to stop while you're learning how to be a property manager. So I always say, at least let it be a property manager for a year, ask a lot of questions, and learn the process, learn what they're doing for you. And then a year from now, if you or your spouse or a family member can take over, you've already got some of that behind you, and you may have a leg up, and you can save that 15 or 20%, put it right back in your pocket.
Regarding HOAs, are there certain communities to watch out for? Do you have any HOA tips for me?
Okay, so HOAs are a contention point for a lot of people that are coming here from another state, or may have Airbnbs that are more unique. Sometimes it's a cabin in the woods, or just a very unique property somewhere, or maybe a campground, and you're renting out tent space, and you don't have to deal with HOAs because that's more money in your pocket, right? So, but in Orlando, my suggestion is to seek out the HOA properties, because those are the resort style communities that have those protections in place, and that when people are coming here for the first time, they want to drive into a community and, oh my God, I want to feel like I'm on vacation. The palm trees and the pools and the golf courses, that excites them. You're not going to get those kind of things in a non-HOA community. The homes might be in good shape and the grass might be cut, but you don't have any control over what your neighbors ultimately do. Your neighbor may paint their house pink and let their grass grow high and work on their car next door. And here comes your client looking to spend the next 2 weeks on vacation, and their neighbors are blasting music or smoking some things that they don't want to be a part of. So seeking out an HOA, in my opinion, is the best thing you can do, and it gives you some protections too. Most of the HOAs here, the resorts that I normally suggest, it includes cable and internet. So that's part of your cost. You may have already broken that down. It includes all your lawn care, the exterior maintenance of the grounds of the home, all the amenities, the live 24-hour guard gate that's welcoming your customers into your home. So that's impressive. When people are coming to Florida, you want that, like they're being treated like royalty. Oh my gosh, there's a guard here. And oh my gosh, look at the pools and the palm trees. And they get excited when they're driving in. So that's all part of the experience, but it does come at a cost. So although you do have to factor that in, most of them, if you're in a full-blown resort community, let's say Champions Gate or Story Lake, things like that, you can plan on between $450 and $650 a month for those things. But you can also, now you back out your cable and internet, you back out your lawn care, you back out all the things that you get to provide your guests, whether they get access to a movie theater, the lazy river, the tennis and volleyball, the tiki bars, all those things. Those, you can't replicate that no matter what you do at a home that's not in an HOA. So I'm always thumbs up for HOAs here in Orlando, at least.
Can you analyze the potential ROI for this market? I just want to ensure that the investment I make will make me money,
Okay, understood. And we're all doing this to make money, right? Real estate is a path to wealth for most of us, but everyone's got a different idea what that is. I invest personally in real estate. I own rentals. I did own some Airbnbs at one point. I do not any longer, but I understand why that's so important. Some people are using it for a write-off and they just want the depreciation. Some people want cash flow. So protecting that and knowing that up front is key to most people, but I have to get to know you and what your what drives you to want to own one of these. So the nightly rates are going to be different for literally every single house. We can generalize, and there's plenty of software and companies out there that will give you some of that information, whether it's companies like AirDNA or Rabbit or things like that. So we all have access to that information, but you have to delineate it down to what does that mean to me, and how does it affect my house, and is my house better than the house next door? Just because I can give you a dozen examples of a 5-bedroom here and a 5-bedroom here, and they have completely different nightly rates and occupancy rates, because it comes down to marketing, theming, and how they're managed, how accessible they are to have people find them, right? How many good reviews they have. So I can't give you a blanket black and white answer of what a nightly rate should be, or what your occupancy rate should be, or what your ROI should be. We can kind of hone that in and give you some generalization on, hey, if you're in Championsgate, you might see this in a 5-bedroom. But if you're in Story Lake, that same 5-bedroom house, literally be built by the same builder, might perform vastly different. So breaking all those things down and getting with a property manager that has access to, I like to use real live data rather than the algorithm, some of these websites. Because if you're talking to a property manager, they're pulling that data right from their listings that they're managing. So there's no fluff, there's no generalization. This is what I'm seeing on a 5-bedroom in Championsgate today. That could change over months, over the course of a year, depending on seasonality or what's going on in the world. If a new theme park is opening, like we're going to experience next year, all those things matter. So unfortunately, there's no blanket answer to that, but we can narrow it down and get you an idea of what you should expect.
So besides a pool, are there any other must-haves for guests?
Okay, so this is why I recommend resort communities, because even if your house lacks in one area, the amenity center that the HOA and community has might pick up some of that. And I'll give an example for, let's say, Championsgate. Championsgate has the biggest, best amenity center out there, outside of maybe 1 or 2 that are really at a whole nother luxury level. But Championsgate has 1,000-foot lazy river. It's got volleyball. It's got an indoor theater that you can watch movies in. It's got its own arcade. So your home doesn't necessarily have to have everything. You're going to do better if it does, but you can rely somewhat on the clubhouse at the amenity center to kind of take that from you. But the standards, the minimum that you need to have, again, is a pool. A spa would be an excellent choice. And again, most single family homes are going to already have a pool and a spa. When we get into townhomes, obviously a lot of those don't have pools, and the ones that do, they're more of a splash pool rather than something that you can swim in. Something for the kids to jump in and have a good time. But no one's doing laps at a townhouse pool, right? And then you move into condos, you don't have pools at all. You have to rely on the community pool. So if you have a single family house, a pool is almost guaranteed, but a hot tub is not. A hot tub will get you more bookings, and that's proven through the data of the booking sites and the algorithms. We can show you that if there's the ones with hot tubs get booked maybe 20% more. But again, most single family homes are going to have those already. Most homes here have garages. If it's a single family home, it's going to have a garage, and that garage should be converted into something, whether it's a game room, a movie theater. I even have a customer that turned one into a putt-putt golf course inside the garage. So we don't use them for parking or storing things. We use them as more entertainment space. So the pool and the garage are must-haves. Most homes are going to be equipped somewhere in the house with a bonus room or a game room. So you can have an adult section maybe in the bonus room with poker tables and maybe some throwback arcade games. And then in the garage is all about the kids with Xbox and more visual entertainment that they can interact with. So those are just some basic ideas. And then it's about the artwork and getting them interactive. Having maybe a illuminated wall that has the name of your house on it. Maybe it's, Mickey's house, and do a play on words or something and get them excited and tag your house on their social media. Maybe you have your own Instagram page or TikTok and you encourage them to help market your home. So doing things to make them have fun in your house, not just a place to lay their head, is absolutely key.
Do you help your clients decide what platforms to use to list short-term rentals? Airbnb, VRBO, etc.
Okay, so as far as the property management side of things, I usually don't get too involved in that because it's really not my lane, but I do have some opinions and I do get feedback from my customers that I've helped sell. Obviously, the two big juggernauts are Airbnb and VRBO. Some people call it Verbo. But those are the two biggest platforms. But now all the airline booking sites and all the travel websites are getting on board too. So your Expedias, your Booking.coms, your Hotels.com, all of those are in there too. And plus international clients, they have their own within their country. So it's best to leave that up to the experts. And again, those are your property managers. And that's not me. I'm not licensed to be a property manager, but I know there's hundreds of them out there now, and you have to be in tune with all those and make sure they're working together with your calendar so that your one's not booking one place and one price and another one find it cheaper. They all have to work together in unison and making sure that you are tracking which ones work and which ones don't and what they're charging you and charging your guests. Because I've had clients that tell me one works way better than the other, and another client in the same community tells me, oh no, that's not my experience at all. So it's really kind of what you're offering and what kind of customer it's going to attract. My experience has been the more luxury customer, maybe coming from another country, is going to use VRBO over Airbnb. But if you're looking at domestic rentals from people within the US, Airbnb is probably more dominant. So that's just something you have to kind of figure out on your own, but I'm happy to have a consultation with you, maybe with a property manager on the phone as well.
I'm concerned with rising insurance rates and utility costs. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so insurance, utilities, those are all things, they shouldn't be afterthoughts, right? Because it's going to affect your bottom line and your ROI. So it's not something to think about, fall in love with the house and then, oh my gosh, I can't afford the insurance on it. Because we all know a non-owner occupied home is going to have higher insurance rates. So then it comes down to, you've got the liability of having a pool in the house and all those things. You're in another state. So you need to protect yourself. And Florida does have the highest insurance rates in the country because we have hurricanes. So that's something that we definitely want to not put off till the end, because I want you to be profitable, right? That's part of my playbook, is making sure that you have a winning strategy here. And talking about insurance and utilities, again, I don't want to put that off. So utilities, again, they can range drastically from house to house and from guest to guest. Not just, you have to plan for it on a yearly basis, a monthly basis for your budget, but it can vary drastically. We're warm weather all year long. The AC is going 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So if you can put some protections in your house to kind of offset that and maybe train your guests to not consume as much, or have the doors automatically close, things of that nature, only charge for pool heat when they're using it, and have it automated, things like that. So insurance and utilities are definitely something you want to keep top of mind, and we can help with that. I've got a lot of good partners on my side in those industries that can help mitigate those costs and make sure your ROI stays in your pocket.
What should my income and exit strategy for this endeavor be?
Okay, so ultimately, real estate, my strategy is to buy and hold, and I don't ever want to sell. But these kind of properties, you might get tired of them. One of the reasons people buy these is because they have young kids and they want to come to Disney World 2 or 3 times a year. That's not everybody's strategy, but so you need to think about how you're going to use this and how long, what's the shelf life on it, right? So once your kids age out, they hit 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, they're driving, they don't want to come to Disney World anymore. So do you hang on to this or do you sell it? And what does that look like? How many years are you away from that? And everybody's a little bit different. So most of these properties, are built in 2015 or newer, because that's about the time Airbnb became relevant. And there was a gold rush, especially here in Orlando, to build, 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 build. So most of these homes are less than 10 years old. So we haven't seen a mass turnover in these, but most of them were sold to investors in other countries. The builder would hire some representatives to put on seminars and go to Vancouver and go to Beijing and go to Brazil and go to London and hold seminars and sell these en masse to investors that wanted a piece of the American pie, right? So they were the first iteration of buyers, and nobody knew what was going to happen, how successful it was going to be, and it turned out it was a pretty good investment, because not only did the homes appreciate, but Disney World kind of handed them a blank check to keep charging people money to stay in these amazing homes. So, but you as a consumer need to think about, well, I'm entering this home on year 9 or year 10. What do I have to look for? How do I get out of this if I don't like it, or if I'm not successful, or my kids age out? So those are all things you need to consider. If your kids age out in the next 10 years down the road, we can pretty much assume, based on the history of real estate, that the property is going to appreciate. At what rate, we don't know. Orlando tends to fluctuate a little bit depending on how great the economy is. If the economy is doing great, we go through high appreciation. But Florida is very sought after, but people aren't living in these homes. So it's not the demand from the regular people that are retiring or moving here. It's how well is Disney doing? How well is Universal doing? What's the weather like? What's the economy like? So when you think about those things, the appreciation might be a little bit slower than the general market of residential retail homes here, but they will appreciate. But we're buying these mostly for cash flow. So the cash flow trumps the appreciation, but the appreciation is still there. So you're getting both, which is great, because you don't always get that. So again, another thing to consider is most of these communities, you do have that second exit strategy to turn them into a long-term rental if you so choose. So we saw this right in the beginning of the pandemic, back in 2020. Nobody knew it was going to happen. Everyone got scared. The country's locked down. There's no planes flying. So what we had to do was we saw a lot of people turn these into long-term rentals, right? Because everyone was locked in. Disney was going to be closed. They got scared. And then people kept coming. So we went back to short-term rentals, and we've been successful. So you can long-term rental these. I wouldn't suggest it because they're not really built for that, but you can. Some communities, and there's only a few of them, that do not allow full-time residents. There's a maximum of 179 days, which is 6 months. So they don't allow stays of more than 6 months. So you have to know that, and I can help you pick those communities if that's a concern of yours. But that's not generally why we buy these. So there's a lot of little nuances to think about: how you're going to use it, how long you're going to hold it, and what do I do with it when I'm done. These are very popular for 1031 exchanges. Obviously, you're moving from this property, maybe short-term rental. Now you want to get into long-term rentals, maybe multifamily, apartment buildings or something. So sometimes it's a good transition piece for, hey, this is my first delve into real estate investing, to, okay, I had fun with this, but I'm ready to move on. And you move on to something bigger and better, maybe in a little different, diversify a little bit into something multifamily or something like that. So you do have choices, and we can talk about that a little more in depth when you're ready.
Really appreciate your time. Another question: do hurricanes and other Florida natural disasters worry you?
So these homes, typically around Disney, we do have a lot of lakes here in Central Florida, and we are going through an emergence of hurricanes every year. So we have to be aware of what's going around in the insurance industry as far as flood insurance, and what do I need to be aware of, right? So as far as I'm aware of, none of the homes in the resort communities that I normally suggest are in flood zones. But FEMA is probably redoing those maps on a much more quicker basis than they have been, because areas that weren't prone to flooding now may be. So, but I can figure that out immediately once I look at the property, how it's currently zoned, and what we're typically looking for is flood zone X. If it's flood zone X, that's a 100-year floodplain. So that's what most of these are going to be. And if it's an outlier or if it's near a body of water, because some of these are, we can get into that a little bit later, and property to property specific.
All right, next. What communities around Orlando should I look at to buy in?
Okay, so this is one of my #1 questions is, Sean, what do you recommend? And without picking favorites, I do have my favorites, of course, but they're not based on necessarily performance. They're based on location, the style of homes they have, the amount of amenities and quality of amenities they have. So things like that. You can be successful in any of these communities, but I do have my top 8 or 10, and in no particular order. We're going to go at Champions Gate. It's one of the only golf course communities out there that allows short-term rentals. There's only 2 others that I can think of. One is very high end, and one is not low end, but it's not on par with Champions Gate. So if you want a golf course community because that's important to you, or you think you might have clients that would pique their interest and help get your stay booked a little bit more, that's one of the reasons I picked Champions Gate. It is a little bit further from the parks, but not enough to sway people from staying there, because it's got about the most homes you can have in a resort community. So it's got the bulk of the inventory, so that's why it's so popular. Then we've got Story Lake. It's on the other side of I-4 in more of the tourist area. And by tourists, I mean the gift shops and the restaurants and on the busy roads that lead right into Disney. Champions Gate and some of these other ones I'm talking about are a little bit, you still go through those things to get to Disney and the other parks, but you're not face to face with it. So Story Lake is one of the newer communities, and it's very popular because it's a little bit more modern. It's got a little bit different feel to it. And it does have a residential side and a short-term side. So you can live in one side all year long, or you can have a vacation rental on the other side. And it's a straight shot down 192 to Disney. And I've got all these on a map, so we can show you that later. Some of my other ones, there's a group of properties that are all called Windsor, and they're all built by the same home builder. That's hence the name Windsor. So we have Windsor at Westside, Windsor Hills, Windsor Palms, Windsor K, and Windsor Palms. So these 5 resorts are very similar in style and feel. They have updated some of the amenities as well as the floor plans. They have up to 10-bedroom homes. There are condos in a couple of the communities. Windsor Hills and Windsor Palms both have condos. Most of the other ones are just townhomes and single family. Windsor K is the newest addition. It's literally, we're in the last quarter of 2024 right now. Windsor K is still being built out. So you can get a brand new home, never been lived in, never been rented out, if you choose. I would caution on doing that a little bit, just so you know, they do not come furnished or themed out. So you're paying the price you pay just for the house. And then you can go in there and put your own stamp of whatever you want to do to it. But that's a good way to go if you want to not take over someone else's home that they've put their personal touches on, right? Outside of that, we have Solara, which is very close to the Windsor at Westside property. That's a much smaller community. It's intimate. It has most of the same features as some of the other ones. It still has a lazy river and a tiki bar and a nail salon. And it's got this really cool thing called a flow rider, where you're kind of standing up surfing on the water, which it's the only one around, by the way, but it's much smaller. So if you don't want all the crowds of Champions Gate, you can go to Solara and get some of that. You've got one called Solterra. It's probably the furthest one away that I would recommend. It's still fairly close. It's still on a map. It's only about that far from Disney, but the traffic to get there is a little bit more difficult. But again, they've got the inventory. They've got a great amenity center and clubhouse. It's guard gated. They've got all the homes are tile roofs. They've got some really cool floor plans, up to 14 bedrooms in that community. It's one of the only ones that goes above 10. Most of them are 10 or under, This one has 12 and 14 bedroom homes. So if you need that space, or you want to be in that niche of having one of only a handful of homes that large in all of Central Florida, if you think you can fill that up a lot and that's your niche, by all means, Solterra would be a good fit for you. So those are my top communities that I recommend. But again, there's a little few niche ones in there too, Margaritaville and Reunion. But those are a little more specialized, and we can get into that later. There's some that are just condos and just townhomes. Again, are you going to use it personally? Do you want that close-knit feel, or do you want you and your guests to all experience all the bells and whistles?
Thanks, Sean. Just a couple more. So what's the A to Z process after our meeting today?
Okay, so when I'm doing a call like this, what I'm trying to find out is obviously your budget and timeline and your experience level is key to me, kind of suggesting where we start looking, what communities might be a good fit for you, and what you can, frankly, what you can afford. I generally, not from a sales standpoint, I'm certainly not greedy, and you'll learn this. It's from a point of you making the best return. What I normally do is suggest buy the biggest house you can. And by all means, I'm not here to spend your money, but I do want you to have the right fit. If it's just a small family and you're going to use it personally, you may not want an 8 or 9 bedroom home, right? You may want a townhouse, and that might be perfect for you. But if you're doing this strictly as an investment and you want to get the most bang for your buck, most of our data that myself and my property managers, partners see is that when buying a larger home, you generally get a bigger return. Because if we look at the data, the smaller homes, if you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom condos, townhomes, or single family, you're competing directly with hotel rooms, first of all, and with each other. And there's a lot more condos and townhomes and hotel rooms than there are 8 or 9 bedroom homes, right? It's just simple math. You're not, when you have a larger home, you're not competing any longer with the hotel chains or the on-site properties at the theme parks. So right off the bat, you've got a much smaller market of people that are looking for what you have versus what everyone else has. And if you've got a larger property, you can always rent it out as a smaller property. But if you've got a 3-bedroom townhouse, you're not fitting 15 people in there. Those people are gonna have to go to a single family, and you're gonna miss out on them. So if you have a bigger property, you can rent it out for, if you have an 8 or 9 bedroom home, you can rent out for 20, 23 people. Or if times get tough, you can rent it out at the price in terms of a 5-bedroom home or a 3-bedroom home if you really, really had to. Maybe just to fill in some of those dates that no one booked, and like, oh my gosh, might as well make a little bit of money versus none. So picking out the right size property is obviously key.
Last one, I promise. What else should I know before jumping into investing in Orlando?
Figuring out your budget and what communities that I'm probably going to suggest for you, first of all. And doesn't mean I'm going to push you in towards any community in particular, but just ones that I know that can be successful. And once we kind of narrow that down, I'm going to show you a map, show you all about those communities. And because I live pretty close to all these communities, I'm going to go there, and you can watch my videos of all the communities and get some insight. There's plenty of information online. You can go to Airbnb or some of the other booking sites and kind of look at all the amenities and the aerial shots and all the drone shots and things, so you get an idea. But I'm going to go there in person and tour the home, just like I do on all these other videos. I'm going to go sit on the beds. I'm going to give you the good and the bad and the ugly on all these homes. And once we narrow that down and you find one that's a good fit, then we start negotiating. I look into finding out, why are they selling? What is their motivation? My objective to you is to get you the best price, right? Because I'm working with you as a buyer. So that's my duty to you, is to get you the best price in terms so you can be more profitable on the back end. From that point, typically you're still pretty remote. You may not, I've had dozens of clients that have never seen their home until after we close on it and it's funded, which is a little scary for me, I'll be honest, but it's kind of the way the world works now, right? We do a lot of things through FaceTime and YouTube and Zoom and everything else. So I have no problem going to the house, filming it, giving you my opinion on all the things that you want to consider on the home, once we agree on that, we make that offer, and then we negotiate. Typically, these things take about 30 days to close, but there's a lot of things that happen in between. We have appraisals and inspections, and we have to work with, if they have a property manager already, we have to find out, do those bookings convey to you? And if so, do you have to stay with that property manager, or can you buy them out of those contracts? And we work all that out. That's between me and the other agent on the other side, the property manager. And then behind the scenes, you're working on your financing, your insurance, all those types of things. But it takes about 30 days to close. I normally suggest, as we get into the busier seasons, sometimes it's difficult for me to even get access to view one of these homes because it's booked so much. It may be a week out before I can even get in. The same with once we go under contract. To have an inspection done can be difficult because the inspector can't get in and the appraiser can't get in. And then when we go to close, we have to pick a closing date if there's no guests in the house, because whose guest is it? Is it yours or the previous owner's? How do you get paid if it is your guest? Are the utilities changed over? All those kind of things are going to absolutely matter, and we have to take in consideration when we're making an offer. But again, that's on me. I'll hold your hand as much as you need to through all that. And we come out on the other side, and hopefully you get a booking right away as soon as you close. But we can work on all those details and all the nuances, because each property is going to be very different from the next based on how they manage, how it's furnished, if you're going to go in there and redo things, or if it's a turnkey property that's up and running and already has bookings and you hit the ground running. All those things matter, and but we have to talk about that on an individual property basis.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Talk to you soon. I appreciate the time.
So if you're asking yourself, hey, Sean, this sounds great, what are the next steps? Well, I'll tell you what, everybody's different. Everybody has a different set of needs. I'm going to tailor my time and my effort to whatever you need. You may be in a different time zone, which is very typical for me to work with people that are out of state or out of country. So I make myself available to you. I go see properties on your behalf, but all those things, there's a lot of nuances that we have to work through as far as what are the next steps. If you're truly ready to go, obviously I need to know, are you paying cash? Are you financing? Do you have a lender already? Are you going to come here to view properties, or are you going to rely on me to film them for you, maybe on FaceTime, or just shoot videos and send them to you? We can work on all that. And then the whole process from that point depends on the availability of the property. Reach out to me whenever it's convenient for you, because I'm available when you are. My contact information is in the description below. I'll guide you through every step of the process. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, all of this information is on the house. And scene.